There was no official announcement. There was no big press conference. No statement from the agency is neatly framed in corporate words. But behind all that silence, a huge shift is taking place in the Korean music industry. Quietly, almost silently, Jungkook's wealth not only grew, but began to change the map of a power that for decades had been considered unshakable. The K-pop industry has been known as an ecosystem controlled by large companies. Giant labels control the production, distribution, promotion, and even the personal image of idols. Artists, no matter how popular, are often positioned as part of the system, rather than as a powerhouse. But Jungkook's presence slowly undermines that assumption. Not through open resistance, not through conflict, but through rising numbers and influences that are increasingly difficult to ignore. Jungkook's name is no longer just synonymous with vocal talent, precision dancing, or visuals that captivate the camera. It has transformed into a symbol of individual economic power amid an industry that typically positions artists as assets, not operators. Every solo release, every global collaboration, every advertising contract attached to his name is proof that the flow of money can move to follow one figure, no longer just following the company logo. What makes this phenomenon feel thrilling is the way it happens. No excessive lifestyle is vulgarly exhibited. No sensation is deliberately created to provoke controversy. Jungkook's wealth grew in silence, but his impact echoed through the boardrooms of executives. Some people within the industry started whispering not about how much he made, but about what it means for an idol to have so much bargaining power. In the past, the financial strength of the K-pop industry was concentrated in the corporate structure. Huge profits flowed into the system, while the artist received a predetermined share. Jungkook, with his current position, presents a new possibility. An artist who not only makes money for the system, but is able to stand as the center of gravity of the economy itself. Every step of the way, not just a response to the company's strategy. Industry analysts are beginning to realize that these are not just individual success stories. It's a paradigm shift. When one name is able to attract global investment, open up new markets, and increase the value of a project simply by its involvement, then power begins to shift. Jungkook doesn't have to say anything to prove it. The market speaks for itself. Interestingly, this wealth does not change Jungkook's image of being a figure distanced from the public. Quite the opposite. Many fans see it as a representation of a dream that has been successfully realized without losing its human side. From a young trainee who once felt the uncertainty of the future, he now stands as a figure who is financially able to surpass many industry players who were once considered untouchable. The psychological impact is felt among the new generation of idols. Jungkook is an example that loyalty to quality, consistency of hard work, and the ability to maintain an image can lead to real financial independence. It is no longer just a momentary popularity, but a long-term power. This makes the company have to rethink. Older models who fully control the artist begin to look fragile when dealing with figures like Jungkook. Behind the scenes, executives began to recalculate. Contracts, profit sharing, and creative freedom are now topics that are spoken about in a more cautious tone. Jungkook's wealth is a reminder that a great artist is not just a face on stage, but a standalone economic entity. When one person is able to shift the balance of power, then the system must adapt or fall behind. But perhaps most dramatic of all is Jungkook's own silence. There was no victory speech. There is no claim to dominance. He continued to work, continued to create, as if all these major changes were just a natural consequence of his love for music. Precisely therein lies its strength. Without provocations, without loud statements, he lets reality speak. The Korean music industry is at a crossroads. On the one hand, the old system still stands with all its infrastructure. On the other hand, there are figures like Jungkook who prove that the center of power can move. The wealth he built is not just a number on the financial statements, but a symbol of changing times. Quietly, the map shifted. The old stripes began to fade. And in the midst of that change, one name stood out with no need to shout, but its presence was enough to make the entire industry turn its head and wonder. Is this the beginning of a new era, where idols are no longer just part of the machine, but the machine itself? But the question does not stop in the space of speculation. It creeps into closed conversations, to the dining tables of label bigwigs, to internal reports that never leak to the public. Jungkook's name now often appears not in the context of promotion, but as a determining variable. When a project involves itself, risk is reduced, value is increased, and global attention is almost assured. It's not just popularity, it's a concrete, measurable, influential economic force. This change was felt more and more clearly when the industry began to compare. Many big groups, many talented idols, but only a handful are able to move the cross-country market with just one step. Jungkook is in a different category. He does not rely entirely on the group's momentum, although his name is inseparable from BTS. He has built a standalone financial identity, a position that was once almost impossible in the structure of K-pop. What makes this situation even more dramatic is the silent reaction of the system itself. There is no open resistance, but there is a fine adjustment. The way contracts are talked about is starting to change. The way artists were treated began to shift slightly. Creative freedom, once considered a rare bonus, is now beginning to be seen as a strategic necessity, especially when dealing with artists who have as much market power as Jungkook. At this point, Jungkook's wealth is no longer understood as the end result of success, but rather as a tool. A tool to choose, to determine, to say yes or no without fear. This is what bothers the old system the most. When an idol is no longer completely dependent on the structure, then the structure loses some of its control. Many people wonder, is Jungkook fully aware of the impact of his position? Or did all this happen organically, as a consequence of consistent hard work and sincere relationships with global fans? There is no definite answer. But it is precisely this uncertainty that makes this phenomenon even stronger. It does not look like a cold strategy, but rather like an unstoppable flow of nature. Fans may see it as an inspiring story. A young boy who grew up under the spotlight, worked relentlessly, and eventually reached the point where his own name became a force. But for the industry, this is a warning signal. If one Jungkook could shift the map of power, then there would likely be another. And when that happens, the face of K-pop as we know it all along could change forever. From the outside, everything seemed calm. The album is released. The stage remains lit. The cheers of fans continue to echo. But behind that glitter, the old balance is slowly cracking. Jungkook's wealth has proven that the industry's center of gravity can move from high-rise corporate buildings to a single figure standing on stage with a microphone in his hand. They don't talk about revolution. It does not claim to be a system changer. But history often moves not because they speak the loudest, but because they move the most consistently. Jungkook, with all his silence, is writing a new chapter in the long story of the Korean music industry. And when one day, a new generation of idols looks to their future with the belief that they can have more control over their own work and lives, perhaps they will realize that the shift began silently. It started with one name, one journey, and one fortune that not only changed the lives of its owners, but changed the course of an entire industry.